Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. Today, don't take this message lightly. This isn't just another video scrolling past your screen. This might just be Allah's divine way of catching your attention, of whispering into your soul, pay attention. I'm about to show you something. Just stop whatever you're doing, let your heart be still for a moment, and listen closely. Because what you hear right now could be a turning point you didn't know you were praying for. Chosen ones, Allah warns, the next 3 days will decide everything. Let that sink in for a moment. Yes, the next 72 hours may carry more spiritual weight than an entire month. Not because they fall on a sacred calendar date, but because you're being called to awareness. You're being invited to tune in, to your soul, to your choices, to the whispers that Allah places in your chest when the world gets too loud. Maybe you've been feeling restless, like something is shifting but you can't explain it. Your prayers are sincere, your heart is open, but things feel paused, suspended, as though Allah is holding back something, or perhaps preparing you for something greater. And maybe your du'as feel like they're echoing into silence. But what if I told you this silence isn't rejection? It's preparation. And the next 3 days, they're not just random. They're a window, an opportunity, a spiritual checkpoint, a divine test before the divine response. And only those who are spiritually awake will notice it. The rest, they'll scroll. They'll dismiss it. They'll think, oh, it's just another motivational reminder. But the chosen ones, they'll know. You see, in the Quran, Allah repeatedly tells us that He does not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. So the question becomes, what is He waiting for you to shift? What decision have you delayed for far too long? What sin have you tolerated in your life as normal? What spiritual gift is waiting for you just on the other side of sabr and sincere effort? Let's be honest. Most people hear signs all the time, but they don't listen. They get warnings in dreams, in hardships, in lost friendships, in sudden health changes. But they treat it all like coincidence. They wait for a miracle, yet sleep through the message. But if you're here right now, still listening to this moment, you're not most people. You're among those who feel something deeper. You're one of the few who doesn't scroll past conviction. And you might be thinking, but what could really happen in 3 days? Well, a seed becomes a sprout in 3 days. The Prophet Yunus, was in the belly of the whale for only a few days before Allah rescued him. The heart of a sincere believer can be transformed overnight. And your life, yes, yours, could take a turn you never imagined, for the better. But here's the catch. Preparation precedes transformation. Allah doesn't change people while they're asleep to their spiritual reality. He changes them when they show signs of wakefulness, when they respond to the call, when they say, Ya Allah, I don't understand what you're doing, but I trust you. Let me make it plain, my dear brother, my dear sister. These next 3 days will not change anything unless you treat them like they could change everything. So I ask you, what are you willing to do with this warning? Are you going to pass by this message and forget it like so many others? Or are you going to hold on to it, reflect, and prepare like someone who understands that when Allah gives you time, He's also giving you a chance? And before we dive into what it means to be a chosen one, and how these 3 days are meant to shake your soul awake, I want you to stay with me until the very end. Because at the end of this video, I'll make a heartfelt dua just for you, for clarity, protection, and for Allah's mercy to descend upon you in these next 72 hours. تتقوزي. This could be the most important message you hear all week, or the most ignored one. But if you're still here, then maybe, just maybe, it was meant for you all along. You may have heard the phrase, chosen one, tossed around in movies or books, usually attached to someone with great responsibility or destiny. But in Islam, being chosen isn't about being famous, rich, or liked by the world. It's about being seen by Allah, selected for a purpose others may not even understand. It's about being given a trial, a silence, a delay, a burden, or a moment through which Allah wants to draw you closer. So here's the sign. If you've been going through hardship, if you've been feeling disconnected from the world, but more connected to Allah, then maybe you're not lost. You're chosen. Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah 2-286, Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear. If He has placed a heavy burden on you, it's only because He knows the strength hidden inside your soul, even if you can't see it yet. Now think about this. How many times did something painful push you to the prayer mat? How many nights did tears become your language of dua? How many rejections eventually led to your redirection toward Allah? Maybe the real gift wasn't the answer you wanted, but the connection you built through the waiting. And maybe, just maybe, that connection is what made you chosen. There's something deeply dangerous about ignoring the soft nudges of Allah, because His mercy doesn't always shout. It whispers. It speaks through discomfort, through the sudden unease that surrounds a place, a habit, or a person. It comes through closed doors that no longer open, relationships that fall apart without explanation, delays that feel heavy, or a strange silence in your life that makes you question your own steps. And most people, when these things happen, shrug them off. They say it's just life. They blame stress, timing, luck. But the believer, the one whose heart is still awake, even slightly, understands that nothing happens without divine reason. And when these signs begin to multiply, it's not just coincidence. It's a warning, a protection, a redirection wrapped in difficulty. Because Allah speaks to the heart that listens, not necessarily the ears that hear. There are countless examples in the Quran of nations and individuals who were warned, who were gently invited to turn back, to pay attention, to purify their path. And yet, they waited. They demanded proof. They treated signs like entertainment, until the day came when the door closed. The people of Nuh waited until the rain fell harder than regret. The people of Lut laughed until the earth opened up and swallowed their arrogance. Pharaoh saw sign after sign from Musa, but his pride built a wall so high that not even truth could scale it anymore. He drowned not because he didn't see the truth, but because he ignored it when it mattered. And now you must ask yourself, what warnings have you overlooked lately? What have you labeled as normal when, deep down, your fitra whispered that it wasn't? How many times have you told yourself, I'll change soon, even as Allah delayed certain events to give you room to act? Ignoring the signs doesn't delay the decree. It only delays your preparedness for it. Just because you close your eyes doesn't mean the storm won't come. And when it comes, it doesn't ask whether you are ready. It simply arrives. That's the nature of divine warnings. They're not for Allah's benefit, but yours. Because when Allah wants, it's not to punish. It's to prepare you for mercy. It's a door. He leaves open before the final one closes. And when you ignore the door, the silence that follows is heavier than words. That's why the Prophet used to take signs seriously, even the smallest ones. A change in weather, a shift in the wind, a dream, a repeated phrase from someone, a sudden feeling of anxiety before making a decision. Nothing was treated lightly, because he understood that Allah guides through subtlety as much as clarity. In our time, however, we're so used to noise that silence makes us uncomfortable. We're so addicted to distractions that when Allah tries to reach us with stillness, we scroll past it, numb. But this numbness is not safety. It's a slow, spiritual death. The heart that stops feeling, stops fearing. The soul that stops reflecting, stops repenting. And repentance delayed becomes arrogance, disguised as procrastination. Allah is Al-Halim, the most forbearing. But even His forbearance has divine timing. And the longer you ignore, the heavier the consequences. Not because Allah wants to destroy, but because He wants to awaken. But awakening always comes with pain. The pain of realization, the pain of regret, the pain of knowing you had time and wasted it. So what does this mean for you right now? If you've been feeling distant from the Quran, if your salah has become rushed or routine, if you find yourself making excuses for sins you used to feel ashamed of, then consider this message your reminder. Not from me, but from the one who created your heartbeat. Because when Allah loves someone, He sends them signs, not comfort. He shakes their world just enough for them to return before it's too late. The next 3 days may not bring a catastrophe, but they could bring a divine opportunity, a choice, a realization, a moment that separates who you were from who you could be. And how you respond will determine what comes next. Many people live their entire lives asleep, only waking up in the grave. But the chosen ones? They wake up before it's too late. They listen, they act, they reflect. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when the world mocks them, even when their nafs screams for delay, because they understand that missing a prayer is heavier than missing an opportunity. That ignoring a spiritual nudge is riskier than losing a deal. And that when Allah places something on your heart repeatedly, it's because He wants you to fix it urgently. Not next week, not next year. Now. The ones who ignored the warnings of Allah in the past were not ignorant. They were arrogant. They knew what was right, but they loved the comfort of delay more than the discomfort of change. Don't be one of them. You've come too far. You've endured too much. You've cried too many nights to turn your back now. If you feel Allah pulling you, it's not without reason. He's pulling you to save you, to elevate you, to awaken you before the consequences arrive. And the question that remains is not whether Allah is warning you. The question is, are you listening? If the next 3 days are truly a divine opening, then the question becomes, what should you do with them? You've heard the message, you've felt the weight, and now comes the time to act. Not in fear, but in alignment. Not in panic, but in presence. Allah never gives you a warning without giving you the tools to respond. And the response doesn't require perfection. It requires sincerity. Just 3 days, 72 hours, could carry the seed of a spiritual shift that reshapes the next 72 years of your life. But the seed must be planted, and the soil must be prepared. That preparation begins now, and it begins with intention. This is the moment to draw closer with purpose. To walk back toward Allah, not with excuses, but with vulnerability. Because He doesn't expect you to come perfect. He expects you to come honest. One of the most beloved acts to Him is when a servant turns back after wandering. When the soul, worn out from chasing distractions, finally returns home to the one who never left. So take these next days to return, even quietly, even privately. Sit with the Quran, even if only for 10 minutes a day. Speak to Allah, not just through dua, but through the silence of your thoughts and the sincerity of your presence. Perform each prayer not as an obligation, but as a reunion. A meeting with the one who kept you breathing while your heart was drifting. You don't need to announce this shift to the world. You don't need a grand gesture. What you need is presence. Allah notices the small things, done with a trembling heart, more than the big things done for show. Maybe your change starts with one prayer you never used to pray on time. Maybe it's one conversation you need to have with Allah under the stars. Maybe it's finally breaking that habit you've carried for years, knowing it's time to let it go. These are not small steps. These are declarations. They tell the heavens that your soul is awake and listening. If you knew the doors Allah could open for you just from one sincere moment, you'd never delay again. If you knew the angels recording your actions were pausing to witness the moment your heart softened again, you'd never doubt your worth. This is not about being the most religious person you know. It's about being honest enough to say, Ya Allah, I've wandered too far, but I'm ready to come back now. And in that single phrase lies a power that can change the course of your life. These next 3 days might look like any other to the world. But between you and Allah, they can be sacred. A sanctuary of secret worship, of whispered forgiveness, of soul-level healing. They can be the days that heaven records as your turning point. The moment you begin to rise. When you give Allah your attention for even a short time, the world around you begins to shift in ways you might not immediately understand. The next 3 days are not just about what you do during them, but also about what begins to unfold afterward. Because when the heart submits, even briefly, the response from the unseen world begins to move. It's not always loud. It doesn't always come wrapped in clear answers. But if you pay close attention, you'll start to notice the signs. The heaviness that used to sit on your chest may begin to lift. The confusion that clouded your mind may begin to clear. The same situations that used to break you may start to feel manageable. And all of it comes quietly, as if heaven is whispering, we received your effort, and we are responding. Some signs will come as subtle shifts inside you, a peace you haven't felt in weeks, a prayer that suddenly flows with sincerity, a morning where you wake up feeling lighter than usual. This is Allah's way of showing you that your steps were not in vain, that the effort, however small, was witnessed. Sometimes you will notice that people around you begin to treat you differently, not because they changed, but because your light did. When Allah places light in a believer's heart, it begins to affect everything they touch. You might also see unexpected ease, a difficulty that begins to resolve itself without your intervention. A door that had long been closed slowly begins to unlock. These are not coincidences. They are signals. But with these signs also comes responsibility. Because when you feel the response of Allah after effort, the most dangerous thing you can do is return to sleep. Many people experience spiritual awakenings, but they treat them like emotional highs. They feel them, appreciate them, and then forget them. The purpose of these 3 days is not just to feel something, it's to anchor something, to build a new pattern of presence, a new rhythm with your soul. That means continuing, even when the days go back to normal. It means staying connected, even after the urgent feeling fades. Because consistency, even in small steps, is more beloved to Allah than big moments that disappear. Sometimes, you may not see any signs immediately. And that's okay. Because Allah is not like people. He doesn't respond to impress you. He responds in wisdom. And often, the delay is part of your purification. The silence is part of your training. He wants to see if you continue even when there's no visible reward. That is true sincerity. That is true faith. It's easy to stay motivated when signs come every hour. But the real transformation happens when your soul remains committed, even when the path is quiet. So watch closely. Feel deeply. Stay present. The next 3 days may be gone before you know it. But what they ignite in you can live on if you let it. And Allah, He never misses the effort of a servant who returns. If you've made it this far, it wasn't by accident. Allah didn't bring you here to entertain you. He brought you here to awaken something inside of you, to remind you of your worth, your purpose, your light. There are no coincidences with the one who writes destinies. And the fact that you've listened until this moment is perhaps the greatest sign that He's still calling you. That He hasn't given up on you, that He sees you, even when the world overlooks you, that He's waiting for you, even when you've taken too long to return. The next 3 days were never about dramatic changes or worldly achievements. They were about presence, about standing still long enough to hear what your soul has been aching to say, about removing the noise so you can finally feel the pull of the one who shaped you with His own hands. And if all you've done is pause, reflect, breathe, and whisper, "Ya Allah, guide me," then you've already begun. You've already stepped into the light. Don't let that light fade now. Don't tell yourself you'll continue later, because we are not guaranteed another 3 days. We are not promised another chance. What we have is now. And if you give Allah your now, He will take care of your tomorrow. That's His promise. That's His mercy. So let me now fulfill my promise to you. A dua, not just words, but a plea from the heart, for every soul that listened, hoped, and chose to believe again. Ya Allah, O most merciful, most near, most aware of our hidden struggles, we turn to you with hearts that are tired, eyes that have cried in secret, and hopes that are still alive despite the weight we carry. We ask you, Ya Rab, if these next 3 days are written to be a turning point in our lives, then make them full of your mercy. Fill them with light, forgiveness, and unseen help from the heavens. Remove from our paths what was never meant for us, and guide us gently toward what you have chosen. Heal what is broken within us, strengthen what is weak in our faith, and replace our confusion with clarity. Let us taste the sweetness of being close to you again, and never let our hearts become hard or distant. Forgive our mistakes, even those we've forgotten. Accept our efforts, even those we feel were too small. And elevate us among those you have chosen, not because we are worthy, but because you are so generous. Amin. Now, breathe. Let this prayer settle in your soul. And remember, chosen one, this is just the beginning. Let the next 3 days testify that you responded when Allah called.